Episode 19. What do we believe in? Survival decides who remain. Meaning decides why it mattered. And meaning is something we choose to believe in. This is the Sci-Fi Griot. I'm your host, Nicholas Cunningham. Over the last several episodes, we asked some heavy questions. What does survival cost? Who gets to be saved? What makes a future worth living in? Those questions matter. But today, we're stepping into a different space because after the warnings, after the consequences, and after the aftermath, human beings always return to one thing: belief. Not belief as certainty, not belief as doctrine, but belief as orientation. What do we trust when the future is unclear? What do we hold on to when answers fail? What gives us the courage to keep moving forward? Science fiction is full of advanced technology, alien worlds, and distant futures. But at its core, it's still asking a very old question: what do we believe in when we don't know what comes next? Science fiction is not about answers. One of the biggest misunderstandings about science fiction is that it's trying to predict the future. It's not actually. Science fiction doesn't tell us what will happen, it asks us who we will be when it does. That's why faith, hope, and belief show up so often, even in stories that seem purely technological. Because no matter how advanced a society becomes, it still has to answer questions like the following: what is worth protecting? What is worth sacrificing for? What is worth believing in, even when evidence is incomplete? Science fiction understands something deeply human. We do not live by facts alone, we live by meaning. So, faith without religion. In the show Contact, Ellie Arroway is a scientist. She believes in evidence, data, and proof. And yet, the most important experience in her life leaves her without evidence anyone else will accept. She knows what happened, but she can't prove it. And the question becomes, does truth require verification? Or does meaning sometimes exist beyond proof? Contact doesn't ask us to abandon science, it asks us to recognize that belief isn't always irrational. Sometimes belief is what remains when certainty fails. The show Interstellar pushes this even further. Humanity survives not because of superior intelligence, but because of connection. Love crosses time. Faith bridges the unknown, not because it's measurable, but because it motivates action. These films suggest something bold. Faith isn't the opposite of reason, it's what allows people to act when reason reaches its limit. Hope as a practice. We're going to look at Star Trek and the show Babylon 5. Star Trek is often described as optimistic, but it's not optimistic because the future is easy. Is optimistic because people choose to believe that cooperation is better than domination. The Federation doesn't exist because humanity evolved naturally. It exists because people decided to try again, again, and again. Hope in Star Trek isn't naive, it's practice. Babylon 5 takes a more complicated approach. Hope in that series is fragile, it's hard earned, often interrupted by loss. And yet, the characters keep choosing belief, not because they're certain that they're a win, but because the alternative is surrender. Both TV shows suggest hope is not a feeling, it's a discipline. The belief shared by suffering. Let's look at Battlestar Galactica and Deep Space Nine. Some of the most powerful belief systems in science fiction emerge from trauma. In Battlestar Galactica, faith is messy. People argue over prophecy. They weaponize belief. They doubt and cling in equal measure. And yet, belief gives them a reason to keep going, to keep moving when logic says extinction is inevitable. Take the TV show Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Faith is political, cultural, and personal. For the Bajorans, belief is survival, it's memory, it's identity. Deep Space Nine shows us that belief isn't just about the future. Sometimes it's about honoring the past so the future doesn't erase it. Science fiction doesn't treat belief as clean, it treats it as necessary. So, what happens when beliefs become dangerous? Science fiction also warns us about belief because belief without reflection becomes dogma. Faith without humility becomes control. We've seen future where belief justifies harm, where prophecy excuses violence, where certainty silence dissent. I want you to reflect for just a moment. Belief becomes dangerous not when it inspires action, but when it refuses to be questioned. This is where science fiction is careful. It doesn't reject belief, it asks us to hold it responsibly. Meaning as a human need. Why does belief matter so much in science fiction? Because meaning is not optional. People can survive without comfort, without certainty, even without hope for a time, but not without meaning. Science fiction shows us futures where everything works, but nothing matters. And those are the darkest futures of all. Meaning is what tells us why we endure, why we rebuild, and why we care. Belief gives shapes to meaning when future is still forming. So, what we believe shapes what we build. Every future in science fiction reflects belief. If a society believes people are replaceable, it builds systems that treat them that way. If it believes cooperation matters, it builds institution that protects it. If it believes power is all that counts, it builds hierarchies. The future is not neutral. It is an expression of belief. That's why science fiction keep returning to this same question. not to give answers, but to remind us that belief is already shaping tomorrow. So, what do we believe in? Science fiction doesn't give us one answer, it gives us responsibility to examine our beliefs, to challenge them, to choose them carefully, because the belief is never passive. It moves people, it justifies system, it builds futures. This episode isn't a conclusion, it's a turning point from warning to wonder, from survival to meaning. This has been the Sci Fi Griot, a place to slow down, to reflect, and to imagine futures guided not just by what we can build, but by what we believe is worth building. I want to close with this. When certainty is gone, what belief still guides you? And how is that belief shaping the future you've already living in?